King Aella of Northumbria is a figure whose name and legacy has become synonymous with one of the most legendary Vikings in history, Ragnar Lothbrok, and his supposed brutal execution of this Viking monarch would lead to one of the most brutal and tumultuous times in medieval English history, as the great heathen army would ravage the lands of England and seek out vengeance against King Aella. And King Aella is one of those rare figures in history where we actually have a better understanding of how he died than any other event that occurred in his life. So, did King Aella actually die from a blood eagle as was depicted in the historical TV show Vikings, or are there other alternative discourses that can explain exactly how King Aella actually perished? To better answer this question, we will be analyzing the various discourses present in both Viking and Anglo-Saxon documents that make reference to the death of King Aella and the circumstances surrounding his death. But before we begin, don't forget, if you want to learn more about the deaths of some of history's greatest figures, then subscribe to my channel Historical Exit. When discussing the death of King Aella, the best and most logical discourse to consider first would be to analyze the most common and popular theory that King Aella died after being blood eagled to death by the sons of Ragnar Lothbrok. And for those who are unfamiliar with the concept, blood eagle is a brutal method of execution in which the individual is placed in a prone position, and from there, the ribs are then severed from the spine with a sharp tool, and lastly their lungs are pulled through the opening to create a pair of wings, which to some may resemble a very bloody eagle. So definitely a brutal and prolonged method of execution if it was ever utilized. And in the case of King Aella, there are two Norse sources that state he died from the blood eagle after being captured alive by the sons of Ragnar Lothbrok. The tale of Ragnar's sons purports the following in regards to King Aella's death. They captured King Aella and carved the blood eagle on his back. They cut all the ribs from his spine with a sword and then pulled out his lungs. Thus Aella perished. And a nearly identical depiction is also present in the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok, in which the author states, "They seized King Aella and inflicted upon him the blood eagle, cutting open his back and tearing out his ribs, and then they salted the wounds." So both sources provide nearly identical depictions of how King Aella may have died, with the blood eagle method specifically being mentioned, and that Aella did indeed perish from the wounds sustained in this brutal execution. But it is important to highlight at this point that the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok is a 13th century source which makes high use of mythology and legendary embellishments throughout its pages, and the Tales of Ragnar's Sons is also another 13th century source which again shares the same issues of exaggeration and embellishment throughout the entire text. So although it is possible that King Aella may have perished from a blood eagle, it cannot be accepted as a definitive discourse based solely on the evidence presented in these two Norse sagas, which were written nearly 400 years after King Aella's death. So to further understand how King Aella perished, we will need to critically analyze what contemporary medieval sources state about this monarch's death, and our best historical document that discusses his passing is the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, which contains an annal for the year 867 AD. And the historical text presents a fairly detailed description about the events leading up to the death of King Aella, stating that this year the army went from East Anglia over the mouth of the Humber to the city of York in Northumbria. There was much discord among the Northumbrians themselves. They had deposed their king Osbert and had accepted a king named Aelle, who had no hereditary right to the throne. Late in the year, the kings Osbert and Aelle united and fought against the invaders, and after great slaughter on both sides, both Osbert and Aelle were slain, and the invaders took possession of the whole kingdom. So this quote highlights that the great heathen army had swept across East Anglia, ravaging the lands, and had made their way to York, and this caused mass hysteria and panic amongst the Northumbrians and the populace of the region. Therefore, a joint Anglo-Saxon force led by Osbert and King Aella would assault the Viking forces camped at York and attempt to halt the invaders from raiding any further into Northumbrian lands. However, as the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle verifies, both King Aella and Osbert would fail in this endeavor, and both would eventually be slain during the battle, resulting in the Vikings conquering all of Northumbria after this defeat for the Anglo-Saxon forces. So as can be ascertained from the context of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, it is evident that King Aella definitely perished in the Battle of York in 867 AD, and there is no mention of blood eagle or any other sort of desecration to his body occurring, which is definitely an event that would have been noted in the chronicles if such a horrendous deed were to have occurred. So therefore, it would be prudent to assume that the theory of King Aella's death by blood eagle, as argued by later Norse sagas, is indeed an embellishment, as the only contemporary source we have for King Aella's death states specifically that he died in battle at York and makes no further comment on the issue. However, historian Roberta Frank presents an alternative discourse which has some level of acceptance across academia and with modern historians, with her implying that the authors of the Norse sagas misunderstood contemporary 9th century descriptions that alluded to leaving one's enemy face down on the battlefield with their backs torn so they could be more easily devoured as carrion by scavenging birds. And if one considers this theory, then it seems plausible to accept that King Aella was killed in battle fighting against the sons of Ragnar, and they may have ripped his back open to allow it to be more easily devoured by nearby birds of prey, which may have been a fact that got embellished over the centuries and would later give rise to the concept of the blood eagle. Nonetheless, it is important to note that there has been no certified archaeological or historical evidence that can verify this theory, and at present it remains a plausible hypothesis at best. So to conclude, we have identified that the tales of Ragnar's sons and the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok are the two Norse historical texts where the common held theory of King Aella being killed by blood eagle originates from, and we have also identified this to be an exaggeration and embellishment added by later Norse authors centuries after King Aella's death. Additionally, we have analysed the Anglo-Saxon chronicles, which makes no reference to the blood eagle in any way or form, and it verifies that King Aella most certainly died in the Battle of York in the year 867 AD, which is a fact that is present in all medieval historical texts and sources. Therefore, we can state with a high degree of certainty that King Aella definitely was killed by the Vikings, but most likely not by the blood eagle as is commonly believed. So I really hope you enjoyed this video and found it to be educational and enjoyable, and if you did, please do like and share this video with others, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to my channel Historical Exit so you can find out more about the deaths of some of history's greatest figures. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.